Okay, this section's going to look at the concept of supply. There's two types of supply: general supply, which is needed to avoid the effects of being out of supply, and combat supply, which is used to function at full capabilities when attacking. General supply is basically a unit is in general supply. They can trace a line of supply to a supply source or to an appropriate HQ which is in general supply. Divisional HQs can supply all the units inside their division, and they can also supply up to 3 other units. And this may include 1 non-artillery unit from another division, but it could equally be 3 core units, for example. Germans are similar, except there is one exception, that the Germans are able to attach artillery units from other divisions to another division's HQ. There are exceptions in the fact that things like crocodiles and AVRE armours can be attached to a division free of charge. And also Commonwealth armour brigades may consist of more than 3 units, and you can attach the whole brigade to an HQ, and that's in addition to the 3 units you could normally attach. Core HQ that in general supply can supply an unlimited number of non-divisional units. The Corps HQ does not provide general supply to divisional units. Breakdown companies are considered to be core units for this rule. Line of supply is basically an uninterrupted line of continuous hexes traced from the unit questioning back to a supply source. No terrain restrictions are in place, but the path must not enter hexes occupied by enemy units or strong points, or a hex in an enemy zone of control which is not negated by a friendly unit. Right, your supply route lengths. A Corps HQ is in supply if it can trace a line of supply of any length to a friendly supply source. Division is in supply if it can trace a line of supply up to a maximum of 20 movement points to a friendly supply source or to any friendly Corps HQ in supply. A divisional unit is in supply if it can trace a line of supply from up to 6 hexes or 6 movement points, owning player's choice. That's a bit weird. To a friendly supply source or to a unit's divisional HQ if that is in supply. A non-divisional unit is in supply if it can trace a line of supply up to 6 hexes or 6 movement points to a friendly supply source or to a Corps HQ that's in supply, or alternately up to 3 non-divisional units may trace to each divisional HQ. I incorrectly said there are no terrain effects on a line of supply. That's not true. A line of supply may only be traced over an unbridged stream or river hex side if the unit tracing supply is adjacent to that stream or river hex side. Okay, there is an exception for HQ tracing supply source to a supply source across an adjacent river. Begin the distance counted from the hex on the same side as the river as the core HQ it is tracing from, not the HQ itself. That basically allows a division to act as a bridgehead. If using movement points, use the infantry movement rates in any weather on primary roads, and which is half and 1/3 on highways, even if the enemy units are within 3 hexes of the highway for supply purposes. Okay, yeah, so there is, as I said, there is part of a supply route, division to corps, which is done in movement points. So in that case you can use road and highway movement points, as discussed, for infantry in any weather. Effects of weather on a line supply. Supply ranges are halved during heavy rain and storm turns. Right, so all of these are tracing lines back to what's called a supply source. Now, Allied supply sources are each beachhead Commonwealth and Polish must trace to a British beachhead. US and French must trace a line of supply to a US beachhead. That's for combat supply. Allied units may trace a line of supply to any beachhead for general supply. German supply sources are all highways and road hexes on the east or south map edge that lead off the map. Additionally, German player may draw general supply from any friendly controlled city hex in Bayeux, Cherbourg, Caen, Argentan, Flers or Vire. Right, out of supply effects. Units that are not in general supply are considered to be out of supply, or OOS. And it suffers the following penalties. Attack strength is halved, rounded up. Units that begin their movement out of supply may not intentionally move adjacent to an enemy unit in terrain that would otherwise require them to attack. Movement allowances are also halved, rounded up. This is cumulative with the halving of Allied night movement and mechanised movement. Out supply units cannot receive replacements, and they cannot receive combat supply. They can't use road or strategic movement rates. Out supply units still retain their full defensive strength.